Welcome to week 5 of our Foundation series. Let's review to get started. We've spent the last several weeks studying blueprints for extraordinary faith, but what makes faith extraordinary? Remarkable faith is evident in the lives of men and women who can see beyond what meets the eye. These are people who look beneath the surface to see the spiritual realities happening all around us, even when no one else can see it. This week, we're studying Elisha and what happens when we start to see reality like God does. Israel is in a conflict with the Arameans, and they're outmatched. Let's pick up in 2 Kings 6. But immediately Elisha, the man of God, would warn the king of Israel, "Do not go near that place, for the Arameans are planning to mobilize their troops there." So the king of Israel would send word to the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he would be on alert there. Elisha is a prophet. Prophets listen for the voice of God and help bring people close to the heart of God. Here, God is actually telling Elisha the enemy's battle plans. That keeps Israel one step ahead, and the king of Aram is convinced there's a spy in his army. The king of Aram became very upset over this. He called his officers together and demanded, "Which of you is the traitor who has been informing the king of Israel of my plans?" "It's not us, my lord the king," one of the officers replied. "Elisha, the prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel even the words you speak in the privacy of your bedroom." The king finds out he's not dealing with a spy, he's dealing with a prophet, and now he's out to get Elisha. The Aramean army surrounds the city, intent on trapping Elisha. The king went all out. He's going to stop this prophet. Let's read on. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. "Oh, sir, what do we do now?" the young man cried to Elisha. "Don't be afraid," Elisha told him, "for there are more on our side than on theirs." Elisha prayed, "Oh Lord, open his eyes and let him see." The Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. Lack of sight often leads to lack of faith. Elisha prayed for his servant's eyes to be opened to see a fuller picture of reality, and he did. In light of all those horses and chariots of fire, the Aramean army didn't look so bad. So the question for us is, where are we looking? And how are we looking? We need to ask God to open our spiritual eyes so we can see the world like He does. The Apostle Paul prayed like this all the time. Let's read from Ephesians, where Paul writes, "I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which He has called you, the riches of His glorious inheritance in His holy people, and His incomparably great power for those of us who believe." When our eyes are open, we can see God's love and His power at work in the world. God is with us, and He's fighting for us. Too often, we see one without the other, but we can't separate them. People of extraordinary faith believe that God can and will make all things right, no matter how it looks on the surface. They see hope where everyone else sees a lost cause, and they have a fuller perspective of what's going on. They understand more than what meets the eye. So how's your spiritual eyesight? Phil gave us 2 ways to pray for clarity. First, we need our eyes open to God's presence. God is everywhere, but that doesn't mean we always see Him. Scripture tells us we'll seek God and find Him when we seek Him with all our hearts. When we actively choose to believe that God is here with us and keep on asking Him to help us see Him, that's living a life of extraordinary faith. The fact is, God's already here. We're the ones who need to show up. Second, we need our eyes opened to God's protection. The king saw Elisha as a threat, and out of that fear, he pulled out all the stops to get rid of him. But the thing is, even if he did capture Elisha, he'd never be able to trap God. The king focused on what he could see with his eyes, but Elisha and his servant saw more. When life is heavy or there's a lot against us, we start looking down. We get confused. We get lost in the weeds. We've got to train ourselves to keep looking up with God to see things from His point of view. Far too often we live in fear of the world because we forget that God has our back. God is our protection, whether we can see it all or not. When we live in light of that, we're motivated by faith and not fear. Let's talk more as a group. If we want to see what God is doing, we're going to need to put our whole lives into it. Jeremiah 29:13 says, "If you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me." The NIV says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." That verse right there, that's one that I clung to as a new believer. I was a college student figuring out my way in the world. I'd been a Christian for a few years, and all I wanted was to get as much of God as I could. It was a wide open invitation from God. He said, "Give me everything and I'll give you everything." That was the deal. If I didn't hold anything back, he wouldn't either. I learned early on that if I want the good stuff that God has to give, I can't keep any parts of my life to myself. You see, I want God to speak to me and show me what I should do. I want God to be my guide. I want him to help me with the battles all around me. I want him to show me what he's doing and take care of it all for me. I want God to be my protector. If someone is against me, I want God to work in their life and reveal the truth to them so they can have a change of heart. I just don't always want him to do the same thing for me. You see, if I want God to take care of all the things going on out there, I'm going to need to let him take care of what's going on in here. If I want God to tell me what to do in the everyday circumstances of life, and I want him to fix what's going wrong in the world, I need to first listen when he tells me what's wrong with me. That's the deal. I think so often when we can't see God or hear what he's saying, I throw him under the bus for being distant, when really I'm the one who's being distant. Maybe I want some of God's help, but not all of it. Maybe I'm holding something back, and until I hand that over, I just can't see clearly. I can't ask God to help me see what to do about something outside of myself if I want to stay blind to what's going on with me. It just doesn't work that way. Maybe we only see a little because we're only surrendering a little. Remember, we will seek God and find him when we seek him with all our hearts. That's how we practice extraordinary faith. If we want God to show up in our lives, we have to want to see everything he has to show us. Let's dive into that as a group.